Joining us again, Don Close and Joe Vaclavik. Don, we've seen oil prices come back down. However, gas prices have not responded in that same manner. Are we seeing these higher gasoline prices at the pump? Are we seeing it impact consumers' willingness to pay these high prices for beef?
Certainly, we're seeing a decline in consumer confidence, and that's showing up throughout the market. We are seeing some shift from a year ago. Overall, I would say beef demand is still quite good. But if we look at the price on individual primals, there's certainly a growing level of evidence that we're seeing steady to weak prices in middle meats. We're seeing higher prices on the chuck and round items. Certainly the ground beef prices have been strong. So there's evidence there that consumers are trading down on the beef items that they're willing to buy, and certainly showing caution or uncertainty.
Yeah, speaking of some of that uncertainty, Joe, when you look at corn prices, typically higher gasoline prices, good news for ethanol demand, good news for corn prices. Does that correlation not exist anymore, Joe?
I think it could to some extent. For the moment, the U.S. ethanol producer is generally profitable. Ethanol production has been okay. It's been mostly normal. The thing that's concerning would be ethanol stocks, which are at their highest level on record, seasonally speaking, and really the only time we ever saw higher ethanol stocks was during the spring 2020 COVID panic. So that could be a problem if you get to a situation where gasoline demand is materially reduced and demand for ethanol itself is materially reduced. That would have an impact on corn demand overall. We're not to that point yet. I suppose we could get there. I don't know if I'd make that assumption. It's just one of many possibilities, I guess.
And Joe, speaking of demand, I mean, on the grain side, we saw some phenomenal export sales recently, but are we having trouble moving that grain? I mean, when you look at the truck driver shortage, when you look at some of the issues in rail that we're having, some of the issues on water, are we having any issues moving these export sales?
Well, we started off the marketing year for corn and soybeans with issues. We had the hurricane at the Gulf, and that delayed shipments of corn and soybeans and everything else out of the Gulf really all throughout September through a lot of October. So we have yet to really play catch up to any significant degree. Shipments of corn are still, I think, like 14% behind last year. Shipments of soybeans are 21% behind last year. So I think we have the ability to catch up, and the sales have been excellent. You've seen some contra-seasonal sales, as a matter of fact, of soybeans, old crop soybeans, that you wouldn't really see this time of year normally, but you're seeing them, I think, because of the light South American crop. So the demand for U.S. beans is there. We've also, on a different note perhaps, we've got the best new crop book of soybean export sales on record. So not only are global buyers coming in for old crop, they're coming in for a lot of new crop, soybeans and corn both.
Well, Don, speaking of export demand, when you look back at last year, I mean, export demand really was the shining star for beef. I know we don't ship a lot of beef to Russia, but are we seeing any trouble signs when it comes to exports?
Not yet. We've started the year with the January numbers incredibly strong. China continues to be a phenomenal growth market. We're still seeing very good trade volumes with Mexico. Certainly, Central South America is a new emerging marketplace, and the whole Southeast Asia complex continues to be very, very solid. With the volatility, the global volatility, is there a risk of seeing some slowdown? Certainly, it exists, but everything we're seeing at this point in time, and it's particularly with China. It's full steam ahead. The one other point that I would add with that on the whole logistics and supply chain situation, we're seeing some better reports out of both LA, Long Beach, Oakland. Each of those ports had made accommodations to get perishable items in and out faster. So I think the bottleneck that we closed out the year with at the ports, I think that's getting a touch better. And at this time, the export situation still looks very, very promising.
Good. Promising news there. All right, Joe, real quick, as we head into this big acreage report, what is the market watching?
Well, I mean, the acreage numbers first off, but I feel like they've almost taken a back seat to everything else that's going on. Ukraine is more important. Even the South American drought, or the not the failure of the soybean crop, but the light soybean crop is a big deal. Grain stocks can be surprising. That's one other area to focus. But I mean, again, I think the acreage numbers are just hugely uncertain. I wouldn't be surprised by 90 million acres of corn. I don't think I'd be surprised by 96 million acres of corn. I think there's so many variables, more than I've ever seen, certainly, that could dictate farmers' decisions. Part of me says that farmers don't like to switch acreage around, and part of me says this year is perhaps different. So it's a big wild card.
All right, Joe Vaclavik, Don Close, thank you both for joining us this weekend. We appreciate it. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll have much more right here on U.S. Farm Report.